So again, good afternoon everyone. This is your subject, Practical Research 1. Our previous discussion was all about ethics and the characteristics of a research and researcher, di ba? Our discussion for today will be quantitative and qualitative research. So ano ba ang pagkakaiba ng tinatawag nating quantitative and qualitative research? So let's see. I have clip art here. Take a look on the comic strip below. Can you distinguish the difference between the two panels? So let's go to the quantitative research. Only 1 in 20 passerby took the free candle. Interesting. Qualitative method. What did you feel when you saw the free candles? Excited, a little scared, and why was that? So as you can see, in the quantitative method, there is number, diba? As you can see, it says there only 1 in 20 passerby. So meron siyang ratio, may number na included, and many other things. While in the qualitative method, tinanong niya, or the topic here is the feeling, diba? Feeling cannot be measured, while on the quantitative method, it measured that only 1 in 20 took candle. So, from that simple illustration, ano ba ang pagkakaiba ng quantitative and qualitative method? Let's see furthermore kung madidistinguish nyo. There are two broad categories of research methodology. So, quantitative and qualitative are called research methods. So, please remember that. Research methods, qualitative research, or quantitative research. The methods to be used in conducting a research will determine the approach the researcher takes in identifying relevant data and collecting and analyzing the information gathered in the research. So, mahalagang ma-distinguish mo or malaman mo as a researcher kung anong type of research method ang research mo. Bakit? Because it will affect your interpretation on the gathered data, ano ang i-gather mong data, and paano mo i-analyze ang data na nag-gather mo. So, it will all depend on how you classify or categorize your research method. If it is quantitative or qualitative method. So, please remember that quantitative with an N as in nido, quantity. So, quantity meaning number or meron kang statistical data which includes numbers. While in quality with a letter L as in love, quality ay ang tinatanong mo mga non-numerical data. Okay? Please remember that. Quantity or quantitative with numbers. Qualitative is non-numeric or hindi siya numbers. Okay? Choosing either a quantitative or qualitative approach will affect the components of the research. So you need to know if your research will be quantitative or qualitative research. So as a researcher, you should know that. So the following ideas or concepts will help you determine kung quantitative or qualitative ang iyong research. Number 1 is the contact time. The period when researcher interacts with the research subjects or participants to obtain relevant information. So, ang contact time na tinatawag is yung interaction mo sa sumasagot ng questionnaire mo. or the time where you have an interaction with your respondents. Okay? Hypothesis. A statement usually predicting the relationship between variables that can be tested by scientific research. So, ang hypothesis is yung prediction mo. So, there are two types of hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. We're going to discuss that furthermore in our next discussions. So, hypothesis, yung prediction mo. Nakakaapekto ba ang internet connection sa tardiness ng mga estudyante? Or hindi nakakaapekto ang internet sa tardiness ng mga estudyante? So, that is an example of a statement hypothesis. Outlier. Ano naman ang outlier? A statistical observation in a set of data that is inconsistent with the majority of data. So, ito yung mga tinatawag nilang discrepancy. Hindi siya consistent, hindi tumutugma. Outlier ay yung mga discrepancy sa na-collect mong data. Yun. So, yung mga hindi tumutugma. So, yung the rest of your data collected, magkaka-connect. Pero there are sets of data na hindi kumo-connect sa the rest of your data. That's outlier. Output replicability. Capable of repetition, imitation, or reproduction. So we already discussed that research has this characteristic called replicability, di ba? So pwede siyang maulit. Capable of repetition. Pwedeng maulit, pwedeng gayahin, pwedeng gawin ulit. Research instrument. A measurement tool designed to obtain, measure, and analyze data from research subjects around the research topic. So, ang research instrument is yung mga statistical method. It's either you're going to use chi-square, z-test, t-test, whatever test that you're going to use, those things refers to research instrument. Sample size. The number of subjects to be taken from the target population of the subject. So, ang tinatawag na sample size, kaya nga tinawag na sample. So, I believe you already discussed this in your subject statistics. So, di ba ang stat or the population sa statistic is represented by capital letter N, di ba? So, capital letter N, population. So, kapag kumuha ka sa population, for example, the population is 1,000. Tapos, kumuha ka ng 100, that is the sample size, okay? Kaya tinawag na sample. And sample size is represented by small letter n, okay? Population is capital N, and sample size is represented by small letter n. Okay? Trend. Ano naman ang trend? An assumed development in the future that will have a long-term or lasting effect. Prevailing style or preference. So, trend yung parang yung nangyayari ngayon, ano yung uso, di ba? So, here or today, the most trendy research topic includes the coronavirus or the COVID or the lockdown, the new normal, mga ganon, online learning or online, basta refers to online, something like that, or in education, new normal, yeah, so trendy, trend. Validity, the functional quality of research instrument on obtaining data and producing results based on the purpose of the data. So, ang validity is yung lumalabas na kapag you already gathered the data. So, validity refers to may sense, parang ganun. So, may sense ba yung nag-gathered mong data? May purpose ba? Mapapakinabangan ba? Ganon. Variable. Any characteristic that can have different values or traits that may vary across research participants. So we already discussed this before, that the variable is found in your research title. So there are two different variable that must be included in your topic or title, the dependent variable and the independent variable. So yung mga values or characteristics or values na makikita sa iyong research. Yung main ideas, ganun. Okay? So to further understand quantitative research to qualitative research, I have this table. Let's compare these two different research methods. Okay? If you have any other or if you have question, you may type it on the chat box and we will entertain it later. So let's see what is quantitative research and qualitative research. So in quantitative research aims to characterize trends and patterns. So what do we mean by characterize? So kung ang trendy is the tardiness of the online students or no, the factors affecting the tardiness of the Hume's 11. Ganon. So how will you know or how will you execute it? By characterizing it. Characterize mo in a sense that you put number on it. Gawin mo siyang numerical data. Diba? So you're going to apply research instrument, z-test, t-test, chi-square, mean, median, mode. Depende, diba? Depende sa gusto mong lumabas. But in qualitative research involves process, feelings, and motives. The whys and the hows, produce in-depth and holistic data. So what do we mean? So in qualitative research, ang mga lumalabas lang sa collection of data mo or in your collecting of data is yung mga non-numeric, sinabi ko na nga, di ba? The whys and hows. So, kapag sinagot mo yung why, di ba? You will answer it with maybe a sentence or a word or a process. The whys and hows. Okay? So, in quantitative, numerical result. In qualitative, words or expressions or pwede ding feelings, ganun. So in quantitative research, usually starts with either a theory or hypothesis about the relationship between two or more variables. So there's this part in chapter 1. So you're going to put conceptual theory or conceptual framework or pwede ding theoretical framework and hypothesis. So, binibase mo yung study mo sa existing theory. Pwede yun sa quantitative research. Or pwede ding hypothesis. And you're going to refer it or titignan mo yung relationship ng one variable to another variable. So, my example was yun, the tardiness of online students, di ba? What is the relationship between the tardiness of the online student to their internet connection? Ganun. Then, ang lalabas dyan is numerical. In qualitative research, usually concerned with generating hypotheses from data rather than testing a data. So, in qualitative research, dahil sentence or words ang lumalabas sa gathered data mo, you generate hypothesis. Generate meaning, nakakabuo ka ng hypothesis. But in quantitative, tinitest mo yung hypothesis. Tinitignan mo kung may connection yung isang bagay sa isang bagay. Yan. Quantitative uses structured research instrument like questionnaire or schedule. So you use questionnaire. In qualitative, uses either unstructured or semi-structured instrument. So the example of in unstructured or semi-structured is yung mga interview. You talk to your respondent and sila naman, they won't answer you by checking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or checking yes or no. So that is done in the questionnaire part, diba? In quantitative part. In qualitative, kausap mo mismo yung respondent. Or you may give them structured like a questionnaire too. Pero yung isasagot nila is by essay, mga ganun. Or explaining something. Because it is qualitative. Quantitative research uses large sample size that are representatives of the populations or of the population. So it uses larger size. Bakit? Because the respondents will only check yes or no, depende sa questionnaire, or if it's Likert, they will just answer one for most likely, 5 for agree, disagree, mga ganon. So, in quantitative research, we use large size or sample size, okay? In qualitative research, we use small sample size. Bakit? Mahirap ang gathering sa qualitative research. Kasi hindi kasi numbers yung ini-interpret mo dito. You're going to analyze their answers depending sa sinulat nila or sinabi nila, di ba? So, it is said that qualitative research uses sample size because the collection and the interpretation, analysis of the data collected is really hard. Next, has high output replicability. So, ang quantitative has higher replicability. Bakit? Because the method of collecting, interpreting, and analyzing data collected is far easier than qualitative research. Mas madali ang quantitative na gawin kaysa qualitative research. So usually, qualitative research is done by courses from philosophy, mga ganon, psychology, sa dissertations, pag nag-doctorate ka, ganon. So they use qualitative research. And sometimes, they also use it in masters. Pero, depende na sa researcher yun. In qualitative research, has high validity. Bakit? Because it is nga quality, di ba? Words. Ganun. Quantitative research. Used to gain greater understanding of group similarities. So, it means, iniintindi mo lang yung isang concept. Then you're going to interpret it in a numerical data. In qualitative research, used to gain greater understanding of individual difference in terms of feelings, motives, and experiences. Used structured process, quantitative. So structured process, yung may sinusundan. In qualitative research, uses more flexible processes. Bakit? Because of the very complex collection of data, analyzing, interpreting, they use a lot of processes in order to interpret their gathered data. Madaming ginagawa sa qualitative research. Methods include census, survey, experiment, and secondary analysis. So in quantitative research, they used this one, census, survey, experiments, and secondary analysis, which or you usually use statistical methods in doing that. In qualitative research, methods includes field research, case study, and secondary analysis. So ang field research kasi, it is done I have a friend, social work siya. He used field research, pumupunta siya sa mga bahay, nagtatanong. Then, after nun, kung may similarity yung mga sinasagot ng mga respondents niya, yun ang gagawin niya. Yun yung ini-interpret niya. Yan. Case study also is done by police, pwede din social work din, depende. So, but please bear in mind that quantitative always refers to use of numerical data or, yeah. Qualitative, feelings, motives, experiences. So, hindi siya numeric. Okay? Generally, quantitative and qualitative research differs on the type of data they produce. So, magkaiba sila ng data na pinoproduce at the end of the research. The former dwells on the collection of numerical data analyzed by statistical analysis, while the latter deals with descriptive, in-depth, and holistic data analyzed by summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting. So the quantitative, sinasabi nga na you use statistical analysis. Habang ang qualitative research, you will deal with descriptive mga sentences, pwedeng paragraph, pwedeng emotions, ganun. How satisfied are students with their studies? So in quantitative research, let's interpret this question in quantitative research. How satisfied are students with their studies? In quantitative research, you may survey 250 students at your school and ask them a question. On a scale from 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with your studies? Then, you can perform statistical analysis on the data and draw conclusions such as, on average, students rate their studies 4.2 or 4.1. So, as you can see here, they interpreted the satisfaction of students into numerical data, which is, on average, sinasabi niya that satisfied sila 4.1, which is a very good number, close to perfect, which is 5, diba? How about if you're going to interpret this question to qualitative research? So kung ang quantitative research is 4.1, paano ini-interpret sa qualitative research? In qualitative research, you may conduct in-depth interviews with 15 students and ask them open-ended questions. Open-ended questions, yung nag-explain sila. Ganun. While close-ended questions refers to yes or no. Answered by yes or no. So let's see. You may conduct in-depth interviews with 15 students and ask them open-ended questions such as, how satisfied are you with your studies? What is the most positive aspect of your study program? And what can be done to improve the study program? Based on their answers, you can ask follow-up questions to clarify things. Furthermore, you can transcribe all interviews and try to find patterns and commonalities. So, sa pagsagot ng 15 students, titignan mo kung ano ang pare-parehong sinasabi nila. Yun yung sinasabi dito that you find patterns and commonalities. Ano yung pare-pareho? Saan sila nahihirapan banda? Or ano yung pagkakapare-pareho nilang sinasagot sa tanong na to? So that is how qualitative research works. Okay? Let's see. Read and analyze the following tables from What is Qualitative Research by Alasutari, 2011. To be deeply acquainted with quantitative and qualitative research based on different categories. So there are categories here. Question domains. Common sample size, contact time, validity, variable, outlier, and examples. So ano ang commonly questions sa quantitative? Who, what, when, where. So the answers here are very specific, diba? Who? Excuse me. So in the questions in quantitative, very specific. In qualitative, the questions are how, what, and why. Common sample size. Usually, it ranges from 150 to 200 respondents, while in qualitative, 10 to 15 respondents. Contact time, 10 to 20 minutes. Bakit ang konti ng minutes? Kasi they're just going to answer the questionnaire that you gave them, di ba? Mag-check sila, or they're going to rate 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 depending on the instrument that you used. While in qualitative research, it takes a lot of time, from 45 to 240 minutes. Di ba? Kasi ang dami mong itatanong sa kanila. You're going to give follow-up questions from their answers, mga ganun. Validity must be true of most of the data or nomothetic. So, dapat totoo, or yeah. So, in qualitative, must be true of each case or idiographic. Variables. Define relationships and establish general case. Describe relationship and establish meaning, structure, and context. So in variables, in quantitative, you look for relationship. In qualitative, you look for relationship and established structure. Ano yung pattern? Ganun. Outlier, unique positions lost to the weight of average. So yung mga nawawala or outliers, yun yung sa weight of average lang. While in qualitative, valuable descriptive cases with unique access to average cases. And examples, surveys, numerical counts, statistical analysis, mathematical modelings, basta they utilize numerics. Quantitative. In qualitative, they use interviews, literature content reviews, real-world observations, case studies, and ethnographics. So, in qualitative research, interview, kakausapin mo. Literature content review, magbabasa ka ng maraming studies and i-analyze mo yung interpretation ng bawat studies, and you're going to make a summarized research about it. That is literature content review. Real-world observation. So, sa news, ganun. Case studies and ethnographics. So, I have examples here. Qualitative research, K-pop apocalypse, invading Filipino cultures. Qualitative research number 2, livelihood aspirations and life struggles of Badjao people. Quantitative, K-pop comparative assessment to the full implementation of senior high school curriculum among private and public schools. Quantitative research, use of supplemental learning materials in improving students' academic and attitudes in pre-calculus. So as you can see in qualitative research, tinatanong dito sa K-pop apocalypse invading Filipino cultures, paano yung